If you've been following along so far this year, we've been talking about how the natural world shows up in African mythology and folklore. We've focused on forests and trees in recent episodes, although we took a small detour last week to talk about my newly released book, the Watkins Book of African Folklore, which does include a story about a tree. Now, did you know that according to their foundation legend, the great ancestor of the Darod clan of Somalia was found in a tree? It's a fascinating story with many parallels among different African people. And so the Watkins Book of African Folklore is out now. Grab a copy and read all about it. Each story in the book, and there are 50 of them, comes with contextualizing commentary and linkage to similar stories from elsewhere on the continent. Back to trees and forests. As some of you may know, Friday, March 21st was the International Day of the Forest. And this is a day set aside by the United Nations to highlight the critically important role that forests play in food security, nutrition, and sustainable livelihoods. This year's theme was Forests and Foods, which emphasizes the relationship between forests and the global effort against hunger and famine. And so to commemorate that, in today's episode, we'll talk about some food-giving trees in African folklore. Hello, friends, and welcome to the Mythological Africans podcast, where we read and talk about stories from African mythology and folklore. I am your host, Helen Nde. The first folktale that comes to mind here is the story of the Bojabi tree, told to American missionary Robert Nassau by a man of the Benga people found in Equatorial Guinea. The story appears in Nassau's book Where Animals Talk, West African Folklore Tales, which was published in 1912. In this story, the animals of the forest are terribly hungry because of a famine. They find a tree which has the most delectable looking and smelling fruit, but they still cannot eat it because they don't know what kind of a tree it is and if it's safe to eat. The animals know that there is a large boa constrictor who lives in a faraway part of the forest, and that this snake is the only creature that could possibly know the name of the tree and if its fruit are safe to eat. And so one by one, the animals make the long journey to the snake to find out what the tree is called. But one by one, they forget the name of the tree by the time they return, and so they are still unsure if the fruit of the tree is safe to eat. And the only animal that remembers the name of the tree is the tortoise, who makes up a song with the tree's name, Bojabi, to help him remember. And so tortoise is crowned king of the animals because he can remember the name of the tree and helps the animals get food to eat. And what's more, through the tortoise, the boa also informs the animals that they can eat various leaves and roots, and so saves them from starvation. I love this story because the animals understand that they must know the name of the tree and if its fruit are safe to eat. And this implies a knowledge and understanding that is necessary before they are allowed to partake of the tree's bounty. And it's a safety thing too, right? I spend quite a lot of time in my book talking about the role played by pythons and boas and other snakes in African folklore. And this role usually involves guardianship, holders of knowledge, and gift giving. So it's nice to see that highlighted here. From all indications, the Bojabi tree is Bionella toxisperma, also known as the African pearwood tree or the Moabi tree. Bionella toxisperma is a tall tree found in the rainforests of West and Central Africa, and its fruit, the pulp is edible, but the seeds are called njabi or njave nuts, and they have a fatty oil which is used to make Moabi butter. And Moabi butter is used extensively by African forest people and other communities that live near forest for cooking, for cosmetics, and in traditional medicine. Unfortunately, because of this, the Bojabi tree is currently classified as vulnerable due to overexploitation. The fruit and the nuts are edible, but the wood is also used for carpentry and other purposes. Another folktale with a food-giving tree is A Tree to Sing To, and this is a folktale from the Ndebele of Zimbabwe. The story starts with a prolonged drought which renders the land arid and infertile, and so the people are gaunt with hunger. One day, a man called Sibanda, after searching far and wide for food to feed his wife and children, stops to rest under a tree near a riverbed. And in a moment of desperation, he calls out to the tree for help, and to his shock, the tree rains down sweet, juicy fruit on him. Sibanda gorges himself on the food and goes home full. And later that evening, he watches his wife prepare the meager pot of gruel she has, and he refuses to eat and says, "Oh, give it to the children because I'd rather go hungry than see my wife and children starving." But he does not tell them about the fruit-giving tree. The next day, he returns to the tree and, get this, he tells the tree that his family eats all the food and refuses to give him any. And so the sympathetic tree once again showers him with fruit, which he eats to his fill. And then he goes home that evening and says, "Oh no, I cannot stand to eat if I see my wife and children hungry." And his wife is just like, wow, it's such a good man. He would rather starve than see his children go hungry. And then he's sitting there gloating as he's watching them eat this like thin, non-nutritious food while he's full. But then this goes on for months and months, and it might have kept on going on, except one of Sibanda's daughters started wondering how come, her father always refuses to eat, but he seems healthy and satisfied and was even seeming to be getting chubbier over time. So one day she follows him when he leaves the house. She follows him all the way to the tree and watches him talk with the tree and interact with it and get food. And when she hears what her father says to the tree about how he doesn't get any food at home because they take all the food and give him none, she runs home and tells her mother what her father has been doing. That evening, he comes home and he's like, "Oh no, I can't stand to eat if my wife and children are hungry." And they're just like watching him like, really? So then they see him finally for the selfish guy that he is. The next morning, the whole family follows Sibanda to the tree, but before he can sing his sad, sad song to the tree, his wife runs out and starts telling the tree how he's selfish, how he's been lying to them and keeping all the food to himself. And the tree like shakes and trembles violently, but then eventually it calms itself down, and then it starts raining down fruit on the hungry family. But when a remorseless Sibanda tries to eat the fruit, he finds them bitter to taste. What I love about this story is how it illustrates the principle of generosity, right? Which trees and forests so naturally embody. Because think about it, they give us air, they give us water. Life on earth would not be possible at most, and extremely uncomfortable at least, without their roots and leaves and barks and flowers and fruits. Like life on earth would not be possible without trees. Plain and simple. And so the least we can do is to be grateful for them and share responsibly with others. As Wangari Maathai puts it, gratitude is the simple acknowledgement of the bounty with which you've been blessed and a sense of responsibility for using it wisely. You can read the whole story in Children of Wax, African Folktales, which is a collection of Ndebele folktales written by Scottish author Alexander McCall Smith and published in 1948. And I'll include links, as always, in the episode notes. So knowledge and generosity, know and share. These are simple enough concepts to understand and appreciate, and yet so hard to put into action when there are mouths to feed or profit to be made. But what I love the most about folktales is that they cut through the noise and reiterate very simply and very firmly the values on which all human societies are built. Know, which implies, at least to me, responsibility and an eye towards sustainability, and share, which implies love and care. It really is that simple, friends. We'll be back next week with the final episode about trees and forests in African mythology and folklore. Thank you, as always, for listening.